What up, everybody? This is the Dr. Football Ultimate Patriots podcast. What is going on, world? My name is Dr. Dennis Tien. I am your host, 1 hour commercial free on the Patriots and the NFL. We have an awesome episode planned tonight. We're going to go through everything good happening in Foxborough. It's nice to have some good things happening down there. Has been much of that the last few years. And then we're going to go around the league. Joining me, as always, the CEO of Hedge Better, Justin Fine. Justin, man, what is good, my friend?
A lot's good right now, right? It's football's good. We're getting into that fall weather. Everything's going well in New England right now. We're really settling into the fall. Patriots are in full effect. You got the leaves are changing, the weather's changing, and a lot to be excited about this time of year.
A lot to be excited about for the Patriots. Say what you will, 5-2 feels a lot better than 2-5. I mean, this was a team that was completely out of it the last 2 years before Halloween. So I'm absolutely not complaining about the fact that we're actually going to have a football season this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we said coming into this year, really we would just be happy if we knew that, heading into the back half of the season, we'd be playing meaningful football. And I think at this point, I don't want to jinx it, but it almost feels like a foregone conclusion that we're going to be having a postseason here in New England again, which is something that, we obviously took for granted for so long, but it's been a dark time for the last couple of years.
Yeah, before we even get to the postseason, though, can we just get to the over/under of 8.5, which I know a ton of Patriots fans took that 8.5 number. I think some people even got 7.5. Right? That's looking really good right
Fantastic.
now. With this schedule and this team.
Yeah, I'm looking at that schedule. Obviously, you got a couple teams in there that might be able to give you some trouble, but realistically, there is not a single game left in this Patriots schedule that is unwinnable.
Yes, I agree with that 100%.
So,
I mean, I think some of these games, it's amazing because if you look back to the preseason, right, a lot of it's the schedule keeps getting easier and easier because it was the easiest schedule already. And then a lot of the teams have actually looked like they're going to be worse than we expected they were going to be. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Even the tougher games, there's not one game on there where I'm they can't beat that team.
No, I mean, you look at a couple of the games left that you would have identified as tough, right? I mean, the Bucs are still a good team, but they're a little beaten up right now. They're injured. The Ravens have kind of fallen apart. The Bengals, we'll see what they look a little better with Joe Flacco, but they're not the same Bengals, as with Joe Burrow. And then the Bills, arguably the toughest game left in the schedule, and you already beat them in Buffalo. So, you look at that and you'd be shocked if the Patriots aren't able to do well in heading into the back half of the season.
Yeah, and look, I mean, some of these games, they look like they might be a little tougher than we thought they were a few weeks ago. I'll throw out Cincinnati or Baltimore. Those are teams with bad records, but I don't think they're going to be total pushovers. But go back to how we felt about those games in August.
Exactly.
We're okay, there's no way they're going to win in Cincinnati. There's no way they're going to win in Baltimore. Hey, maybe they're not going to be total pushovers their records indicate, but those are winnable games. Maybe they're 50-50 games right now.
Super, super winnable. Yeah, exactly. So no, I'm feeling really good about this team, feeling really good about their schedule. And just feeling good about the fact that, they're winning games that they're supposed to, and they're not just winning them, they're handling business convincingly. So, they're doing their job at this point. The old adage in New England, do your job. The Patriots are doing their job at this point.
Right. And more than that, I mean, Drake May is doing his job. And I think once again, the story of this game is Drake May, and we can get into him. I want to talk a lot about Drake May because he is the headline story and what he's become over the last few weeks. And we're watching a star be born before our eyes. But before I even get into Drake May, can I just say, if the season ended today, the Patriots would hold the number 2 seed in the AFC. And do you know who they'd be playing in the first round of the playoffs? They would be hosting. Do you know who?
Is it the Bills?
It's the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's the Jaguars. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So,
That
like, come on, give me. I'll take this team against that Jaguars team and Trevor Lawrence any
oh,
day, right?
easy.
And you look across this conference, and there's just so few teams that scare you. So, like, if somehow they could get a home playoff game in January, get a Florida team, get a dome team
Yep.
up here, I mean, really, this team could really win a game or two in the postseason. It's not unimaginable right now.
No, I mean, look, we touched on this last week, but when you talk about, how we expect the Patriots to be able to close out the year, just given the easiness of their schedule and the fact that the AFC is wide open and really for the taking, like there's no reason why the sky can't be the limit for this team. Now, not saying that's the favorite or that we expect that to be the case, but like at this point, I think it would be wrong to put a cap on what the Patriots can achieve this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm still. Do I think they're really a true Super Bowl contender in the truest sense of the word? No, I don't. I think there are too many holes on this roster. But I will say this: I could also see a pathway to them winning 12 or 13 games and getting a home playoff game. And who knows what the hell? Anything can happen in the postseason. So,
Exactly.
especially in this conference. So,
Yeah.
yeah, are they a true Super Bowl contender in the traditional sense? Absolutely not. But does that mean they can't do something in the postseason and make a run? No, because it's a weak conference.
Exactly. And that's kind of exactly my point, right? Is I wouldn't call them Super Bowl favorites or like you said, legitimate contenders, but just given the nature of how their schedule shakes out and how the rest of the AFC shakes out, they're going to have a chance. I will tell you, there's a lot of positives that I'm sure we're going to get into about this team. The two things though that are worrying me right now with them, that could potentially impede this potential success that we're talking about is I don't like their depth, right? I think they're very top heavy and they've knock on wood been pretty healthy for the most part this year. It's very tough to stay healthy for an entire football season. If they lose a couple guys here and there, both sides of the ball, this could be a much different team. And the second thing is the slow starts. They've had a couple slow starts against a couple of bad teams, and when it comes postseason time, or even just in some of these tougher games against like a Buffalo or somebody like that, you can't afford to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think well, we're going to get into this, but you didn't even list to me what I think is the number one thing that could take them down, which is an injury to Drake May, and the
Right.
fact that he's been sacked 22 times in 7 games, which is like, look, the offensive line is clearly much better,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean they're good.
Right.
And May is still getting hit way too often. So we'll get to that, but let's kick it off by talking a little bit, Justin, about Drake May. And I think we both would agree. I think the whole football world more or less agrees that Drake May is becoming a star really before our eyes. And it's only been 7 games, and we've seen a lot of guys come in and they've had good runs for 5 games, 10 games, even whole seasons, and they're not meet their promise. I mean, we kind of just saw this with Mac Jones. I'm thinking of like Mitchell Trubisky
Right.
a few years ago. Even Trevor Lawrence had some moments early on, and it just kind of falls apart. Um, so I think there's some validity to the fact that people are being a little premature in saying he is like the next franchise elite quarterback. But all that said, the one thing I'll say about May, and it's really comes down to not statistics. It comes down to the eyeball test and what you see with your eyes. And when you watch this guy, the way he plays the game, the physical talent and the emotional poise,
Yep.
that combination, I don't care about the stats. I don't care who they're playing. I don't care about anything else. When I see that combination, the eyeball test tells me that this is enduring, that this is real, that this guy, that they have something going here. It's about the eyeball test to me, and it just feels different with Drake May. It feels like this is real. This guy, Justin, is literally becoming a star before our eyes over the last few weeks.
He totally is. And you talked about the mental toughness, the poise. He has what we've knocked a lot of these young quarterbacks in the league for lacking, right? We've talked about, how guys that have kind of, been drafted even higher than him that were kind of just anointed the title of franchise quarterback, guys like Caleb Williams, guys like Trevor Lawrence, these guys that have come in that have totally lacked like the mental toughness and fortitude needed to be a successful NFL quarterback. And, for all intents and purposes right now, that just doesn't seem to be something we have to worry about with Drake May.
No, it doesn't seem like that at all. In fact, quite the opposite. Now, I would throw a word of caution, which is he really hasn't been tested in a
Sure. Yeah.
postseason run. And I mean, look, even like let's use some examples, right? Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, if they're healthy, all three of them considered top five quarterbacks in the league.
Yep.
Not one of them has actually won a Super Bowl yet, right? So like May could be the next Lamar Jackson, which
For
means that
sure.
in 5 years we're like sitting here saying, look, he's a great player, but he can't win the big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, obviously, it's only one team can win at the end of the year, right? So you can still be a really good team, a really good quarterback, and fall
Right.
short of that ultimate goal. But you got to ask yourself, okay, you got a guy who you think can eventually take you to that level, right? You have a coach who you hope, and not just head coach, but coaching staff that you hope can get you to that level. And we're seeing now an organization that's hopefully going to be willing to not only spend money but be smarter with their draft picks. So, you think that all in all, Drake May and this organization should have everything they need to get there, right? They should be willing to go all in. They should be willing to put talent around them. And they seem to have the pieces, both in terms of, the young quarterback and the coaching staff. So, I'm optimistic that if if the Patriots are able to do something, they're going to give it their best shot.
You talk about the coach quarterback thing, right? And that's like the formula for success. I mean, we saw it for 20 years in New England, right?
Right.
You had Brady, you had Belichick, and it was plug and play from
Exactly.
there. Reed and Mahomes the last couple of years. You look at this thing, and it's like there are a lot of holes. Like the depth thing isn't thing. There's all kinds of holes roster. Look, you have the coach and you have the quarterback. That's the formula in the
Yep.
NFL, right? And if you really think about it, short of Reed and Mahomes, and maybe Sirianni and Hurts in the NFC, you could argue that May and Vrabel is like fast becoming as good a coach quarterback combination as anyone has in the NFL.
I would agree with that. And look, I know this is probably maybe premature to say, but I'd probably even put him above Hertz and Sirianni. I'm not a huge
Right.
Sirianni. I mean, look, the talent on that Eagles roster, it almost feels like, anybody could step in coach that team. To the way they've performed. I mean, they've just been so freaking stacked. Um, and one thing I'll tell you is I don't think you'll see the Patriots collapse at points like we've seen the Eagles collapse just due to locker room strife and these downturns where they just seem to can't get out of their own way. I don't think you're going to see that out of a Mike Vrabel team. So yeah, I think you have the third and arguably the second best quarterback coach tandem in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's do a quick rundown, right? Of some of the alternatives. Like,
Yeah,
who comes to mind? Buffalo. I mean, Allen's is still a better quarterback than me right now, but the coach, it seems like he's 1 year potentially
yeah.
from being
I'll
fired.
take Vrabel
So
over McDermott. Yeah,
Vrabel over
absolutely.
McDermott seems like right now it feels like right.
Yeah.
Look at the Lions. Like I love Dan Campbell, and I've always been a Jared Goff guy, but the way Drake May is playing right now and the ceiling he has, I think I take Drake May over Jared Goff at this point in his career, right?
I think, yeah, you know what?
That's a tough one,
That's a
right?
tough
But
one. I think that's a tough one, but a fair one. Um, yeah, tough but fair. But again, they haven't won a Super Bowl, right? So
yeah,
it's at this point, they're only a few games ahead of where the Patriots, have been.
so the Lions are debatable. You could
Right,
say the
lines are
Lions are
debatable. Lines are debatable.
the Ravens, maybe. They seem like their star is falling. I don't know what the future holds for them.
Yeah,
Obviously Harbaugh and Jackson, that's a legit combo, but they're 1-5. And I mean, they might be ending at some point soon. The Bengals have the quarterback, but the
no, not the
coach is
coach.
like
Right.
probably would have been fired. So, the Chargers, sorry, Justin Herbert, talented loser,
Yep.
talented loser still, showed it again on Sunday. We'll get to him. I think at other places in the NFC, like where is that epic coach quarterback combo? It's
Right.
like, I mean, look, at the very worst, you're putting Vrabel and May in the top five
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now.
I would totally agree with that. I actually don't even, I don't even know if you can argue that at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I think they're definitely top five, and I think you can make a push that you could debate that they're in the top three.
Right. And this is what that means. If you have a top five coach quarterback combination, you're going to have a great 3 to 5 year run.
Right.
You might not win a Super Bowl, but it's going to be a good three. You could just roll out pretty much, 20 mediocre players besides that. But if you have the quarterback and you have the coach,
Yeah.
then those are far and away the biggest pieces. No question about it.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what I didn't like about May and the Pats on Sunday in Nashville, and it was the pass protection because I thought May took some vicious hits in this game from a really mediocre defense. Justin, he's been sacked 22 times. Drake May's on pace for 50 sacks, and I'm going to tell you something. This is no Caleb Williams like holding the ball, Trevor Lawrence holding the ball and getting ripped. This is legitimate pressure that I think May is actually doing a terrific job of handling the pressure. But the pass protection on this team, it's better, but he's still getting hit way too often.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny because you say that number, and I almost like had to think about like, oh, has he actually been sacked that many times? And I think it's because he's been handling the pressure so well in turning nothing into something. Um, Way more than I think we had expected. But you're totally right. I mean,
Yeah.
look, when Drake May, and I know this was, I don't think it was technically a sack. I think he, it was a scramble. But when the play broke down the other day, and you saw, you saw Drake May get swung to the ground, and the back of his head bashed off the turf, right? And
Right.
he kind of gave that, that like, hey, oh, geez, what just
Yeah.
happened?
And he
You know,
got pulled into the concussion protocol.
Exactly. That, you know what? That's scary, and that's exactly the type of thing that has the potential to derail this team. And you know what? It's probably only a matter of time um, before something like that happens. Just statistically, if he's going to get hit that much.
Yeah, and that's what I would say is my biggest concern for the viability of this team. Like if Drake May plays 17 games, there's like no doubt in my mind this team makes the playoffs and competes for the AFC
Right.
East. But I'm worried about Drake May's health. I mean, and it's a combination of two things. It's the hits he's taking when he's passing and he's getting hit still way too often. But it's also the hits he takes when he runs. He still doesn't go down enough. I feel like he regressed a little on that front Sunday where he was protecting himself better. I don't know what it was, but he kind of took some chances, not sliding a couple times,
Right.
and he almost paid for it. Fortunately, he only missed a few plays, but I mean, all it takes is injury to May is probably to me the biggest existential threat to this team right now.
100%. Yeah. I mean, this is, it, Josh Dobbs came in for a snap or two, looked okay. That's fine. But look, Drake May is the linchpin that is holding this team together, right? He is elevating them. This is not the type of team that you could plug Dobbs in and expect, the same long-term success that we're seeing right now. He's got to stay healthy, not just for the team, but for the development of the players around him. Like, he is making everybody better on that roster, on that offensive side of the ball.
No doubt. He's making everybody better. I mean, you can see that so clearly. All these guys, I mean, I lived through this a long time ago, like before you were born with Drew Bledsoe when I was a kid, right? But I remember this. Like Bledsoe, a guy named Michael Timpson, who's a journeyman fringe player in the league, comes out and catches 56 passes. And in Bledsoe, Vincent Brisby is a rookie, 55 passes. Kevin Turner was a journeyman, 53 passes. Like a good quarterback makes everybody better. Drake May is elevating this team around, and you can see it in guys like Kayshon Boutte, Austin Hooper, other players, Pop Douglas, other players on this team are better. I'll tell you the one player who isn't better, and I think it's another big concern on this team, and that is Travion Henderson. Okay, Stevenson held the ball to his credit on Sunday. I still don't trust him. I still think he's going to burn them. I know you agree with that. I don't know where this team goes with the running back position if Stevenson gets hurt or fumbles some more. Like Henderson has been really bad.
He's been bad, but he got what, 2 attempts on Sunday? Like
9 snaps.
9 snaps, 2 attempts. I mean,
which tells you something.
It does. I really don't understand what it is. Like, is is he that bad? Is Vrabel maybe trying to send him a message? You know what I mean? Like, here's one thing that I could honestly see being the case. Although, I would hope it's not, because at this point you clearly need him. You clearly need a guy to step up, and you want to develop him. And I think you'd want to give this guy, as much run as possible. But, coming out of the preseason, there was so much hype around Travion Henderson. Everyone was kind of anointing him as, like the next big thing, as a home run, a big success. Do you think this is Vrabel's way of giving the rookie a little bit of an ego check and making sure that he stays humble, stays on track, keeps that work ethic up? I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think this is
I
all
don't think
performance based?
I don't think this is a game from Vrabel. Vrabel has been way too supportive of these players. You're talking about the coach that gave Andy Borregales the game ball when he finally made a field goal.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking
Right.
about the guy that gave Stevenson the first carry after he fumbled 3 times. So, or whatever it was. So, no, I don't think that this is a head game from Vrabel. I think it's very simple that the speed of the game is too much right now for Travion Henderson. And for a guy that looks so fast in the preseason, and he has just looked so slow every time he's touched the ball in the regular season. I'm starting to wonder, is this another blown second round pick? The only thing I'll say about that, if you remember, Justin, James White looked absolutely horrible for like the first 12 weeks of his career. And then he really came on at the end of his rookie year. So there's hope, but Henderson has looked very poor, and I think it is because he doesn't see the field, frankly, because I just don't think he's very good right now.
At this point, are we starting to maybe wonder if there's an injury that we don't really know about? I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised.
like that to me seems like it could be likely. And look, I'm not excusing poor performance. It's just the player that we saw in college and then into the preseason, it's just night and day between the player that we're seeing now. Right.
Yeah,
And so,
totally.
obviously something, maybe it's just not clicking with him. Like you said, maybe the game's a little too fast, but it almost seems to me like something physically is off at this point, because it's just so different from what we saw earlier in this preseason and what we expected based off of, the guy that we had seen at both levels entering the regular season.
100%. And like, I've wondered the same thing. Is he hurt or something? Because I'm thinking back to that Minnesota preseason game, that touchdown he scored, that touchdown run he had, where he was a shot out of a cannon into the end zone. He obviously returned the kick a little bit before that. He looked like he was going to be a stud. And since this regular season has started, it feels like every time he touches the ball, there's like 3 guys on him, within like a millisecond. So I honestly, I would not be surprised if Travion Henderson is hurt or something to that effect.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. It's something I think we gotta keep an eye on. I know they elevated, was it Terrell Jennings, that he's been a practice squad guy with them for a little bit. I mean, look, he's not awful, maybe not a bad depth piece, but at this point, you just have to be concerned when your lead back is a guy who has reoccurring fumbling problems, and followed by, a practice squad guy in a rookie that looks like he's battling.
Exactly. And just the fundamental fact that how many backs play 17 games in today's NFL? It just doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
So I don't know what they're going to do when Stevenson misses a game.
Right. Yeah, totally.
All right. I want to shift gears a little, and before we get to around the league, and just talk about the coaching this team has had, because to me, this is been really striking. Is just like the contrast between this year's coaching and last year's coaching. Yeah. Not to beat a dead horse, but it's just so obvious that Mayo really didn't know what he was doing. And I think Vrabel has done 2 things masterfully so far this year. The first thing he's done masterfully is he's rebuilt the culture of this team. Yeah. Watch these locker room videos where he greets these players as they're heading after each win. And you can feel the good energy. You can feel the good vibes. So this culture was broken for the last 5 years of Bill Belichick's run. This was a disaster, and they were still winning games because they had Tom Brady, but it was a total mess. Mayo took it over. He made it worse somehow, which is really hard to believe. This guy, Vrabel, has come in and he has fixed this broken culture. And I think it is paying tremendous benefit to this team on the field.
100%. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, that was, I think, the biggest thing we expected out of Vrabel coming into this, right? Like, I know, he's not a bad X's and O's guy. He's not a bad, decision maker, but the culture, the toughness, just the entire atmosphere, that was, I think, the biggest thing, at least the biggest thing that I was looking forward to when you bring a guy like Vrabel in. And you see the team gravitating around it. They're a tough team, they're a resilient team. Like you said, you can see kind of the camaraderie, not only between the coach and in the players, but between the players themselves in the locker room. He's totally brought this team back from what was really a dark place. In At the beginning of the year, when we were scratching our heads, wondering why he was getting rid of some of these veterans that we thought could contribute to this team, right?
Right,
The
right,
Andrews is in the Jawan Bentleys, and we were sitting there scratching our head saying, for a team that needs talent, we're getting rid of some talent.
right.
And now you see why, because he really just totally pushed the reset button on that whole culture and said, we want as little semblance of the past as possible hanging
Right.
around here. We want a fresh start.
Even Jabril Peppers,
Yes.
another example, right?
Right.
You needed to
Kendrick
get rid of
Bourne
those
gets
guys.
rid of Kendrick Bourne. It's like,
Kendrick
yeah,
Bourne.
he really did, other than the guys who had kind of just gotten new contracts, like Stevenson and, Henry was still under, I think he had done like a 4 or 5 years, something like that. But he'd pretty much cleaned house, and you see why he did that now.
Yeah, and like when I watch this team this year and just like the way they are on and off the field and what Vrabel has done this year, and I think of Mike Tomlin actually, because there are
Yeah.
just so few coaches in this league that are able to strike this balance between being a player's coach and
Right.
yet also having a resilient, mentally and physically tough team.
Yep.
You see the Mike McDaniel approach, right? Which just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You see the kind of Belichick way that doesn't work. Vrabel has hit this like sweet spot where he has a team that's tough, but yet somehow he's a player's coach. There's only a handful of coaches in this league that have done that successfully. I think Tomlin is someone that has done that for a long time, but
Yes.
Vrabel is doing that so far this year.
He totally is. And that to me, I think, is one of the most underrated skills of a head coach is being a guy that, can really, crack down in when it's needed. He can really, lay the hammer and just and put the team in its place, but also, be that player's coach, like we said, have those relationships. He's done what is very hard to do, what very few coaches I think are able to successfully do. I think you use two perfect ends of the spectrum. Mike McDaniel's on one end of it, Bill Belichick's on the other end of it, and you got Vrabel, who's kind of just in the middle. That's just a perfect balance.
Yeah, and you watch these like videos, and it's just so clear they sincerely love playing for Mike Vrabel.
Mm-hmm.
But then you watch them on the field, and you're like, this team is tough. This is no patsy. These guys aren't pushovers. The other thing that I think Vrabel has done amazing, and Josh McDaniels also deserves a lot of credit for this, because this was something last year. You did not have to be a PhD in football to watch these games and see that the Patriots did not make adjustments in game, that they lost the chess match pretty much every week in the game. And I'm thinking so many times when they came out in the first quarter and they looked okay last year, and then Sean McVay's or the Sean McDermott's or, even the Colts guy, what's his name, Steichen even, they would make adjustments and the Patriots had no answers because the coaching was poor. You see in these games, sometimes the Patriots have started off slow on both sides of the ball. They're making in-game adjustments much better this year than they did last season.
Oh, totally. I mean, well, look, that's what happens when you have competent coaches, right? It almost is like it's a symptom of having guys there that know what the heck they're doing. I mean, you had Gerard Mayo, you had Covington, you had Van Pelt, and like it was very clear it was the blind leading the blind. Right.
Yeah,
so it's like
100%.
So, it's funny because it's like they may have even been like trying to do that and they just didn't know what the hell they were doing. Right. So it's like you have guys who actually know what they're doing. They have experience. They've been successful. And you're seeing it work out. And, the adjustments is we talked about, I mentioned that slow start that I haven't liked, that we've been seeing with them for the last couple of games. I think it's just a testament to the coaching staff that they're able to settle them down, make the right adjustments, get this team back on track, and by the end of the game, it's a totally different team that's just dominating.
Yep, and you have to give credit to Vrabel, obviously, but how about Josh McDaniels too? Like he's doing a great job. I think he's kind of validating himself. There were a lot of questions around Josh McDaniels going into this year. He had never really consistently done it without Brady before. Hey, as far as I'm concerned, through 7 games, McDaniels has done a terrific job with Drake May. I think he deserves some of the credit for May's year 2 leap. And then the coaching, the actual play calling and the scheming, it's been really good so far.
It's been very good. Yeah, no, it's been awesome. Josh McDaniels, let's not forget, Josh McDaniels made Mac Jones a Pro Bowler his rookie year, right?
Yep.
So, it just speaks to what a guy like that can do. We talked about how Drake May is elevating this entire offense, right? And making guys that we thought were like third and fourth string receivers look like studs out there. But I think
Yep.
you got to take one step back and say you got Josh McDaniels. That's the first domino to fall. That's now
Right.
elevating Drake May, which is now elevating the rest of that offense. So Josh
Yep.
McDaniels is impact is, I think, being felt throughout this entire offense at this point.
When they write the history of the NFL and they talk about the coach that was a great coordinator but just could never be a good head coach, like Josh McDaniels' name will be mentioned in that chapter because he is just that guy. Like he should never take another head coaching job. It's just for whatever reason, it's not what he's good at. But I think he's a brilliant offensive coordinator. I was happy day one, we talked about it. I was happy they got him, and I'm happy they have him. I really am because it has been a huge difference. It is noticeably better this year than last year.
100%. And I think he's just, the longer that him and Drake May together and working together, I think it's, you're just going to see that exponential growth in Drake May. I think he is going to elevate Drake May's growth. He's going to elevate that whole offense. We talked about the head coach quarterback combo, but it really is kind of like a triumvirate of it's a trio at this point. It's
right. And that's one of the good things is like McDaniels isn't going to go anywhere, right? Like no one's going to hire him as a head coach. I don't think. Didn't really I would say the perfect spot for him right now.
He shouldn't want to go anywhere. Yeah, he's got a young Drake May,
anywhere. 100%. And like, the irony of these situations, it happens every year. Look at Philadelphia as a great example. These teams win and they lose coordinators. Right. They develop these young quarterbacks, the coordinators go. It's not going to happen, I don't think, with Josh McDaniels. Yep. This could be a stretch where you have like a 5-7 year run of Vrabel, McDaniels, and May. I mean, that could be really epic.
That could even be like the short end of it. I mean, the Vrabel and McDaniels are young guys. Drake May's in year 2. I mean, it's conceivable to think you could have a decade plus of it realistically. Right. So yeah,
I just think back to Bledsoe's career, and this is obviously before your time, but one of the things that really hurt him and why I don't think he ever quite met his potential is because he had like, I think 4 offensive coordinators in his first 5 years. Right. It's just so detrimental to a young quarterback when they're constantly changing systems, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think Drake May is ever going to have to deal with it. Like what we're seeing the last 6 weeks, it's working. It's working. And I think, this could continue to work for a long time.
100%. Yeah. We talked about after his rookie year, switching coordinators, how, it's totally not ideal to have a revolving door of coordinators with your young rookie quarterback.
Right.
But it was a move, for the better. And I think you got a guy now that's going to be here for a while, and they can just continue to grow that relationship, and it's going to compound year after year.
Absolutely. This is just in its infancy. I really think it only gets better from here. Yeah. All right. I want to talk about one more thing with the Pats before we move on. And you hit on this earlier, but we got to talk about this defense, Justin, and the slow starts. I don't know what this is about, but I have a theory, which is like, look, they start off really slow. Their defensive coordinator, their acting defensive coordinator, is a very inexperienced guy. So I don't know if those two things correlate at all. But what do you think is behind these slow starts with this defense?
I don't really know. I mean, like you said, you don't have your head defensive coordinator out there. I don't know. maybe could it, like, I hate to think they're taking their opponent lightly, but it almost kind of seems like that's what's happening. You had the Panthers, you had the Saints, you had the Titans. You talk about these slow starts in all three. Is it a product of not taking the quarterback and the offense as serious as maybe they should? Because look, against Josh Allen and the Bills, they were stout from get go, right from Jump Street.
Right.
So they were so it almost strikes me like
Right.
maybe they're playing down at the start of games to their competition level, and then they just need a little kick in the butt to get back to where they need to be.
Right. Like if I want to say it's a scheme thing, okay, the argument against that is that they've been able to make adjustments to figure it out. And
Right.
that's implies good coaching. So, I don't know. Is it more of a psychological thing where they're starting off slow? I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, they're the fifth best scoring defense right now in the
Yeah.
league. So at the end of the day, they're generally figuring this out, and their defense has not been bad. I mean, it's been a good defense, especially their front seven is really unbelievable. I mean, they're one of the best run defenses, maybe historically good run defense. They have allowed less than 60 rushing yards in 5 straight games.
Yep.
The NFL record is 10. So, look at who they got the next 5 weeks. They got Bijan Robinson coming in here, but beyond that, I mean, they're flirting with historic elite territory on the run defense.
Totally. Yeah. No, if they can just keep, start to get off to some fast starts and stay healthy, I think this is, I think this is defense that is just going to continue to get better each week. They still got some new pieces out there. Remember, Carlton Davis, Robert Spillane, Milton Williams, a couple of those other guys, they're still new pieces, right? It's their first year in New England. So there's no reason to think that if everyone stays healthy and, they continue to adjust to the scheme and just settle in a little bit more, that the entire defense is going to continue to improve, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, I do worry a little bit about this secondary too. I think if there's one thing, I mean, they don't have a lot of depth in the secondary.
No.
Carlton Davis has been a little shaky. So that's one thing that worries me a little bit about the defense. But at the end of the day, if you're fifth in scoring defense, it ain't bad. So let's see what happens. All right, let's talk a little bit, Justin. We'll get to around the league. I want to just kind of start with Titans and Cam Ward before we transition to outside of the game this week, which is like, I've been a skeptic of Cam Ward. In my opinion, he's a second-round pick. He was a second-round pick most draft years. The Titans were desperate for a quarterback. There was no other great quarterback. So they took him with the number 1 pick. I thought it was a very bad decision. Not a believer in the player. What are your thoughts? We've got a close-up look at him this week. What are your thoughts on Cam Ward? Is this guy a franchise quarterback or not?
I in all fairness to Cam Ward, I actually think he has more potential and is a better player than we're seeing right now. I think he's stuck in a really kind of crappy situation, right? His coaching has been awful. His team has kind of been awful. It doesn't have a ton of talent around him. I want to give Cam Ward the benefit of the doubt here. I would give him, the rest of the season. I would even probably give him another year. I'm not ready to pass judgment on him just yet. I've seen some flashes here and there, a couple plays here and there that tell me that maybe this kid's got potential. So I'm not ready to call Cam Ward a bust yet. I will say I totally agree that, where he was drafted is a product of the draft class and the talent in the draft surrounding him. But I'm not ready to say that he's a bust and he's not a franchise quarterback just yet.
My thing on Cam Ward, Justin, is like, I could totally, like, even if he can play, he's in such a bad situation right now in a bad organization. And I don't see any path for that Titans team to like figure this thing out and fix it. The ownership is weak and unstable. Yeah. There's not a lot of talent there. It's not like a historically, relevant franchise. So I think he's in a terrible spot. And, the one thing I think about Ward is like, I look at him and I'm like, okay, even if he can play, I could totally see Cam Ward being the next Sam Darnold or the next Geno Smith or the next Baker Mayfield, or the guy that kind of flames out in Tennessee, kicks around, and then ends up in 4 or 5 years. And we're like, man, this guy's having that resurgence, kind of following in that second life trend for a lot of these high quarterbacks picks that flame out. But he's in such a bad situation. It's just going to drag him down.
Exactly. And I might be mistaken about this, but I'm pretty sure he's on the younger side and he was pretty inexperienced. I think he only played a season or two in college, right? I don't think he did the whole like
It's
Jaden.
23.
Okay, so he's 23, and I think he came out. Maybe I'm wrong. I didn't think he had a multiple, a ton of experience in college, at least at a high
Yeah,
level.
I'd have to look it up. I'll look it up for you.
I mean, I know he had, he had a year at Miami. I think he might have even transferred into Miami. So, as far as like high level experience at the college, at the collegiate level,
He played 2 seasons at Washington State, led them to a 12-13 record over 2 seasons, played 1 year for Miami in his senior year.
okay.
So you're right. I mean, relatively inexperienced. He probably had more college experience than Drake May, however, in all fairness, coming
Yeah.
out. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just feel like, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like he doesn't process the game well, to be perfectly bluntly honest with you. And I could be wrong. It's way too early to like label him a bust. I agree with that. You need
Yeah.
to see 2 full seasons of this guy before you do that. But when I watch him play, when I watched him in college, even, I just feel like he just doesn't, I don't know. I just feel like he doesn't have those intangible qualities that really make some of these quarterbacks what they are at the NFL level.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I mean, he hasn't really done anything, I think, to show otherwise. I just think he's got so much working against him right now that he needs just a little bit more time and a little bit more help.
Right, 100%. All right, let's get into around the league, and as always, we will begin the Bill Belichick minute. Dustin, is Bill Belichick just a wacky old man trying to have some fun, or has he truly gone off the rails on the crazy train? We discuss it on this week's Bill Belichick minute. Dustin, what is going on with Belichick? Tough loss this week for UNC against Cal. I was kind of impressed. They played pretty good.
They did play pretty well. I mean, they had that like punch out on the goal line. That was a
Yep,
tough break for them.
tough break
Yeah,
because they could have won.
they totally could have won, and that would have been a pretty big victory for them. Um, but it almost is like, you know, indicative of just what's the word I'm looking for? Just a bad situation where when something has the opportunity to go wrong, or when the potential for
You're
failure
right.
presents itself,
It's like right.
it's
It's
almost
like
like
you
a
just have that
self-fulfilling
bad
prophecy.
momentum.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I think they're just in a tough situation right now in North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, look, it feels like the rhetoric has kind of died down this week, which is good because even when we recorded last week, that video of Belichick and Jordan from doing the documentary
Oh
with
yeah.
Matt Patricia, that came out. That looked awful.
Yeah.
It was just such a bad optics to that, and it looks like so dysfunctional. Oh, we have such short memories in this country for everything, right? And like it does feel like over the last 7 or 8 days that it has kind of quieted down. They need some quiet at UNC. Like they just need to go out and play football and have no reality TV stuff and have no off-field stuff and no TMZ stuff. And just even if they're losing, just play decent, play competitive, and just let things settle down a little.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, there's just so many distractions. At this point, but look, it's kind of hard to just totally block everything out, and I think it's unrealistic at this point to say that you don't want any distractions moving forward. The distractions are baked into the UNC football season at this point. You know what I
They
mean?
were 100%. They were
And it might be
100%.
worse. It's sometimes worse as others, but I just think with everything that they've invited, Bill Belichick personally, in just this whole kind of circus down there in Chapel Hill, it's really tough to just block everything out, focus entirely on football, and say that it's gonna be a distraction free rest of the season. I just think that's unrealistic.
Well, yeah, and this is the catch 22 because how do you convince high school kids to come to UNC when it's this kind of a circus? Like who's gonna touch that program right now? Who's gonna send their kid to that program? What 18-year-old is gonna touch that program? I think it's gonna get harder and harder for them to recruit. The more this thing becomes a circus.
Yep.
The other big story with Belichick today, Justin, is that he was advanced for the NFL Hall of Fame for this year, next August. So Bill Belichick could be going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame next year, which obviously Bill Belichick, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt or question about that.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he needs it. I think he needs it sooner rather than later because, you know, there's just been so little to, I think, celebrate in Belichick's career as of late. You know, not dating way beyond or way farther back than just this collegiate season. I mean, you know, obviously the last couple of years in the NFL were just a total disaster here in New England. You know, bad PR. It's really just been a bad look for him overall. I think he needs to get that cold jacket as soon as possible before he totally does himself in and just completely sinks what's left of his reputation.
See, personally, I think there is a floor to how much damage that he can even do to his legacy, and I think he's actually pushing to that floor already. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't know how much more damage he can do. Like, I don't know how much uglier it can get. I mean, I'm sure other things could happen, but I think we have short memories. And I think that when people look back on Belichick's career 5, 10, 20 years from now, they're not going to remember this era, just like they don't think of Brett Favre as a New York Jet, or they don't think of Ted Williams as a Washington Senator, for example. They're going to remember Belichick for what he did in New England. And this sort of ugly last chapter, I think, will kind of be of diminished importance. But I will say, like, yes, there is a floor to how much damage he can do to his legacy, but he's approaching that floor. Like, he's pretty much there, you know, like whatever happens at this point, how much more damage can he actually do?
Well,
I don't know.
well, here's my kind of thinking behind it is like, look, if Bill Belichick had done what he had done with like you know, like a Philip Rivers or like you know, like a mid to you know, an average to slightly above average level quarterback, right? If he had won 6 Super Bowls with you know, just some guy off the street who was, you know, a game manager, then I think his floor is a lot higher, right? But when you had Tom Brady by your side for all of them, especially after Tom Brady leaves and then goes and wins another one with Tampa Bay, the ability for people to say it was Brady and not Belichick, like that is, I think, what can drive that floor down even further.
Yes.
You know what I
But
mean?
but I think that's already maxed out. Like, I think it's already maxed out.
You
You know,
think? I see that's and
I
that,
do, I really do. Like, I don't think I still think, you know, at the end of the day, Belichick, when Brady retired, Belichick was considered the undisputed greatest coach that ever lived. I still think to this day, even with all the damage he did, he's still considered top 10, maybe top 5. I don't think it's going to get any lower no matter what else happens. I really don't.
well, look, if you think about it, I mean, I think you still got to call him the greatest, if not a top 3 coach. You know, I that and that's just
Yes,
my personal feelings after
I
you
agree with
know
a top 5, I would say
right.
personally.
So but you're right that that reputation, you know, here's the way I would put it is it's very sad just to say that, oh, Bill Belichick's a top 10 coach because when Tom Brady left New England, it was like undisputable, clear cut that he was the greatest
Yeah,
coach of all time. And so
agreed.
just the fact that you went from saying he was the clear cut best coach of all time to now having to put the qualifier in there that
Right,
he's a top 10 coach, like that, I think just
right.
shows you how bad it's gotten, you know?
Well, but 100% that's accurate. But like, you're familiar with the concept of dollar cost averaging, which is
Yes.
like when you
Yes.
keep the
Right.
stock
Right.
is lower, you keep buying to get the average price lower. The UNC flameout is already factored into the price of Bill Belichick's legacy. Like, it's
Yeah.
already assumed by all of us that this thing is not going to work and that he is going to be out of there in a year or 2 tops, and he's never going to win anything at UNC. That will probably be the end of his coaching career. I don't think anyone else at a college or pro level is going to hire him. So that's already factored into the price of his stock, if you will.
Yeah.
So, like, I think from here, if he somehow salvages it, he goes up. I think if it flames out and falls apart, it's already part of the price right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, I hope it doesn't go much lower because again, and I know obviously I know you
Me
feel the
too.
same way. We got a lot of love for Bill Belichick around here, right? So it's
100%.
you know, is amusing as it might be at times seeing what's unfolding. It's certainly not something that I enjoy it. You know,
No.
I don't
In
like
fact,
seeing it.
we make light of it because what
Right.
else are we going to do? But
Right.
I actually hate to see this. In all
Yes.
seriousness, I hate to see this.
Yes.
I really do. What's happened to him?
Exactly. Yes. I feel the same way.
You know, it's just been ugly. I just want it to stop. I want Belichick. Belichick deserved to ride off into the sunset.
He did.
He deserved. He did, and he should have never double down on all this stuff.
Yeah.
He should just taking his victory lap run off. All right. Speaking of victory laps, let's move to around the league. Let's talk about some stuff that happened outside of Foxborough this weekend. Justin, we got victory laps. We got medicine to take. You want to start it off?
Let me think on it for a second. Why don't you kick it off?
I got a few things. Okay, so I'm going to take some medicine this week, and I'm going to take some medicine on the Indianapolis Colts. And first of all, let me just say I could not be more dead wrong about a football game than I was about that Colts-Chargers game. I like the Chargers in the game. That was my pick of the week last week, okay? That was the game that jumped out at me, and I said, this is the game I absolutely want to take. Dead wrong. The Colts absolutely wiped the floors with the Chargers. So I was wrong about that game. But the reason I was wrong about that game is because I'm wrong about the Colts. I'm still not buying into the Colts as being a top of the conference team. I know they're better. I think they're a playoff team. I don't believe in them as the best team in the AFC or even close to it. And you know what? I'm wrong about that. They are proving me wrong. They beat the crap out of the Chargers this weekend. They were very competitive with the Rams, the only other test on their schedule, besides the Broncos, who they also beat in week 2. Yeah. That Colts team is proving they're legit. So I have to take medicine on that.
Yeah. I mean, look, this Colts team, I've loved them. I did share that same feeling though, which was, hey, I think they're better than people are giving them credit for, but just how good are they, right? Like, we need to kind of see a little bit more out of them. Now, granted, this Chargers team, I also don't consider to be the cream of the crop of the AFC, but they're good enough that when the Colts beat the crap out of them, you take notice of it, right? And you say to yourself, okay, this team is for real. I still don't think they're better than the Chiefs. I still think if it comes down to it, in a single game, I think Buffalo probably beats them too. But they're at least good enough that they've earned the right to be in the conversation. And at least to get the respect as one of the better, top tier teams in the AFC. I still don't think the best, but I think you got to consider them a top 3 talent in the AFC right now.
I think you have to consider them one of the 5 best teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
that's what I'm taking my medicine on, because right. I was never. I mean, I picked them to win the division. I did a prop bet with the Colts winning the AFC South, so I don't want it to make it sound like I didn't like the team or that I thought they were going to be a bad team, but I just didn't think they were a top 5 team. And I think I'm wrong about that. I mean, they're showing that they are. As for the other side of the field there, look, the Chargers played true to their pea yellow uniforms on Sunday. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's like you want to buy into Justin Herbert. They got off to a good start. They had a couple nice wins at the start of the year, beat the Chiefs in Brazil. Herbert looked amazing. Guess what? He reverts back to form. I know that team is beat up. I know they're missing a few linemen, whatever. It's like, Herbert always pulls the carpet out from under you whenever you start to believe in him. I don't think that Chargers team is going anywhere.
No, I don't either. I think they're going to be a middle of the road team. And at this point, the Chargers are going to be
not lucky. A playoff team. Do you think the Chargers make the playoffs?
I was just going to say they would be lucky to make the playoffs. After their 3-0 start, I think everybody said, "Oh, this is the favorite to win the AFC West. This is a definite playoff team. This is a potential Super Bowl contender. The Chargers are really going to figure it out this year." This Chargers team is going to be lucky to make the playoffs at this point. They're still the 3rd best team in that AFC West division, as far as I'm concerned.
I 110% agree. 3rd best team in the AFC West. I almost want to say closer to the Raiders than the Chargers, than the Chiefs and the Broncos, to be honest with you. And that might be a little bit of a hot take, but it's just like, I just don't see it. And I think that I don't think that is a playoff team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very simple.
I would agree with that. Look, I'll take a little bit of medicine. In this was, coming into last night, I was kind of starting to see it, but last night I think just even solidified it even further for me. I didn't think the Seahawks were going to be any good. I said, I thought that I thought the Seahawks were going to be the 3rd or 4th best team in their own division in the NFC West. That is a very good football team. That's an elite defense. Sam Darnold is playing really well. Jackson Smith and Jigba looking like one of the best receivers in the league. Like that entire
one of the 5 best receivers in the NFL.
that entire team from top to bottom is playing great. And again, I'm watching them last night, and I'm hearing the guys on, the names on defense, and I'm looking up that roster and the depth chart, and I'm seeing them play, and I'm saying to myself, holy crap, like this is like a legit unit, a very legit unit, and they're playing like it. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFC at this point, and I think it's crazy
Yep.
not to consider them a legit contender.
Well, it's funny you mentioned them as you take the medicine, because they were going to be my victory lap.
There you
Because I've
go.
been saying now for a few weeks, pay attention to this team in Seattle.
Yeah.
They're a really good team, and looking at the Seahawks team, and I'm telling you, people are not talking enough about the fact that the Minnesota Vikings might have just made one of the worst personnel mistakes in the NFL in a long time by letting Sam Darnold fall into their lap, play at a franchise level, lead them to 14 wins, and then let him walk away and go with a rookie who can't stay on the field, gets hurt all the time, hasn't even shown that he's that good yet in JJ McCarthy. Meanwhile, Darnold is out in Seattle. He looks great. The Seahawks look great. And it's like, the Vikings letting Sam Darnold go to Seattle might be one of those just historically bad personnel decisions that really alters the future of the NFC.
Look, and I agree with you that in hindsight, it looks like it was the wrong move to let them go. The one thing I will say in the Vikings defense is that, if in that playoff game, because I think they finished what was 13-3, 14-2, something 14.
13-4. It was at least 13-4.
It was something crazy, right? Like they were.
Yeah, they were good.
I'm pretty sure they had the second best record in the NFC, or they lost like a tiebreaker with the Lions or something like that, right? That's how they wound up.
Going into the last week, remember the Sunday night game?
Exactly.
Week 17 last year was Minnesota.
Exactly. Detroit. And then what happens in the playoffs? They kind of got pantsed in the playoffs, and Sam Darnold looked awful, right? And I think even if they didn't win that game, if they had just came out and competed and battled, I think Sam Darnold would have been re-signed by the Vikings. I think him absolutely just freezing like a deer in the headlights in that playoff game sent a message to that Vikings organization that, look, we don't play to win 14 games and then get embarrassed in the playoffs. We're trying to put together, the potential to go out and compete for a championship. How can you trust this guy to go out and compete for a championship when in the big spots like that, he totally wets himself? You know what I mean? So I think his performance in that playoff game, again, he didn't even need to win it. He just needed to play well and compete. And he didn't do that. And I think that's why the Vikings moved on from him. Now, with that being said, the way he's playing in Seattle and the way Seattle looks, it seems like it was a mistake, but who knows? Seattle could be destined for the same fate. The tiger doesn't always change his stripes. So,
well, as you said, only one team wins every year. And look, JJ McCarthy, young guy, second-year player, probably a little unfair to judge at this point. Let's face it. But it does seem like he can't stay on the field, which is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam Darnold threw 35 touchdowns and I think 12 interceptions last year, 4,300 yards and 14 wins. I'm sorry, if I'm a Vikings fan, that sounds pretty damn good to me when I'm looking at 3-3 and rolling out there with Carson Wentz, as my quarterback. So,
yeah.
I don't know,
well, the other thing too is, look, I don't think Sam Darnold signed a super long-term deal in Seattle. I think it was like a 2-3 year deal, something to that effect, right? So like, if you were the Vikings, I don't understand why you couldn't say, hey, we're going to bring Darnold. We're going to bring Darnold back for, on a 2-3 year deal and still.
It was a 3-year, $100 million
Okay.
contract.
So exactly. So you're telling me you couldn't bring Darnold back on a 3-year deal and still draft JJ McCarthy to kind of, learn and work his way into being a starting quarterback? They could have done both 100%.
Yes, they could have done both. And I would also say, Justin, and let's not forget this. Okay, who was the Vikings' backup quarterback last year?
The Vikings' backup quarterback, wasn't it? It was oh my God,
it was Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
After the Giants cut Daniel Jones,
that's right.
He went to Minnesota.
Yeah.
So it was quite possible that the Minnesota Vikings have the MVP or MVP contenders from both conferences on their roster and let them both walk away.
Yeah. Crazy when you think about it.
That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
That's crazy. So this could be historically bad. This could be Deshaun Watson bad for the Vikings.
Yeah.
All right, a couple things, other things I want to get to around the league before we wrap it up. That Giants game, Giants Broncos game, one of the best regular season games I have ever seen in my life. Two young quarterbacks that completely balled out. How? First of all, how? And I took the Broncos at halftime, by the way. Yeah. So I was happy for this. But how do you let up 33 points in a quarter of football?
That was crazy. It really was. It's one of those games that you're scratching your head. And let's call it like it is. If the Giants field goal kicker didn't miss 2 extra points, like they probably win that game. Right. So,
there's no probably about it.
Yeah.
They win that game. They win that game if they kick extra points.
Exactly. They win that game. So the Giants shot themselves in the foot. Now, granted, the field goal kicker ultimately cost you that game, but the field goal kicker isn't the reason why the defense gave up 30-something points in the fourth quarter. Right. So that was just a wild turn of events. But Jackson Dart still balled out. Like Jackson Dart,
he balled out.
Especially after the Broncos had kind of completed the comeback, and then it looked like all the momentum was in the Broncos' favor, and Dart led them right back down and took the lead. Back
that was a big boy drive.
That was a big boy drive, right? So that was showed to me that kid's got poise. But at the end
can I say something about that drive,
yeah,
Justin?
Yeah.
It came after he threw a horrible interception in the fourth quarter to let Denver back in that game.
Yep.
So for a young rookie quarterback to throw a bad pass like that and then show the stones to lead his team down the field in the final 2 minutes, that was really gutsy of Jackson Dart.
It was. And you know what? Everyone's talking about, hopefully, with the Dart Scatterboo combo and some of the young players they got on defense, that this could be a new Giants team moving forward into the future. But I got to tell you, there was nothing new about what happened the other day. That was about as classic Giants as it gets.
I'm telling you. Yeah. How do you find? The Giants find unbelievable ways to lose football games.
I know. And
that was a heart-wrenching loss.
A heart-wrenching loss. And that's the type of thing that if you're Dable, right? People were starting to question, did Dable just save his job with their recent performance in hitting on Dart and Scatterboo? But that's the type of thing that I think completely erases all that momentum they had. That kind of sets his doomsday clock way back, in my opinion.
The Giants are stuck in between such a rock and a hard place with Dable. It's a tough spot if you think about it. In one sense, the quarterback looks good. Dable's a quarterback coach. He did a great job with Josh Allen. You don't want to give up on this guy, or you don't want to be another one of these teams that fires the coach after the first year of the quarterback. It looks like there's something there, and yet they don't win games. They don't look like they're well coached.
Right.
They're prone to collapses.
Exactly.
And it's like they probably would be in the market for a new head coach, but the whole Jackson Dart Dable thing, they're stuck, man. They're stuck in a tough spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. Are you sold on Jackson Dart as a franchise quarterback yet, Justin?
I'm not sold on him as a long-term franchise quarterback. I'm sold on him that I'm sold on the fact that he's better than I think he was, and he's justifying them going back and taking him in the first round, where I think he actually went probably a little bit higher than I thought. We questioned the fact that he went ahead of some of the guys that he did, and I think that was, they were proven right at this point. I think he looked good.
Yeah, and just to compare him to Cam Ward, who went number 1, and neither one of them has very much around them, right? And both of them went into kind of dysfunctional situations. Malik Neighbors is gone, so you can't even say that Dart has Malik Neighbors anymore. And I just think Dart has looked really better. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on Dart as a franchise quarterback, but I'll say this. All the early returns are positive, and he definitely has a shot to be the answer for the Giants at the quarterback position.
Yep.
I want to talk, Justin, about the 2024 quarterback class and Bo Nix, because if you're asking me to redraft the 2024 class, I'll tell you right now, I'm going May number 1. I'm going maybe Nix number 2. And I know that's crazy, but I'm still a little iffy on Jaden Daniels and the injury thing. And then I'd probably go Penix, McCarthy, and I'm going Caleb Williams 6th. And I know he's putting up better numbers, but maybe that's crazy. Maybe I should have Williams higher than, I don't know. But my top three is definitely May, Nix, and Daniels. And look, Nix is a franchise quarterback. Look at the way this guy is playing. Look what he did on Sunday. That's two big time quarterback comebacks for this kid. I mean, he's looking like he is a franchise guy.
Totally. And I mean, look, I know, I don't want to try to, create a narrative here just for the sake of, that he's got Sean Payton, but doesn't he kind of remind you a little bit of a Drew Brees type of guy? Like,
Yeah.
like his size, his build, his attitude, like
Yeah.
he almost just looks a little bit like Drew Brees out there. Not, and the fact that he's got Sean Payton to boot. No, I love Bo Nix. And you know what? I will say, to your credit, right? I mean, if you want to go take a blast from the past victory lap, you
Yep.
said that the two quarterbacks that you liked the most coming out of that class
Yes.
were Drake May and Bo Nix, and that you wanted the Patriots to take either of those guys.
Yes.
So I think you were totally right about that. I think we both had kind of said after last year, heading into this year, hey, be on the lookout for a Jaden Daniels regression, right? I think he's talented, but I'm not completely sold that he's as good as everybody's hyping him up to be. I still think he's good, and obviously he's injured right now. But I think you're 100% right to say that if you were redrafting, May and Nix have to be 1 and 2, and I think Daniels is number 3.
Yeah. And I mean, they're winning games. I mean, Denver said now, I mean, what's Bo Nix's career record as a starter? It's like 16-6 or something like that. Right.
It's really good.
The guy wins and his numbers have been good. So I just think, he deserves a little bit of respect for what he's doing. And it's not just a Mac Jones dink and dunk offense with Bo Nix. Like you look at these games and they're throwing the ball downfield. There are comebacks. I mean, they come back against the Eagles. That was a big time win. That was a big time comeback. What he did on Sunday, that was a big time win. That's what franchise quarterbacks do. So, I think the world needs to come around a little on Bo Nix. I want to talk a little bit about the New York Jets. And, we talked about them last week, but we knew the Jets were going to be bad. I think you thought they were going to be better. So you could take medicine on that.
I did. When we were doing our medicine earlier, I was debating, do I do the Seahawks or the Jets? Obviously, I went with the Seahawks, but I'm equally,
there's plenty of time medicine to take.
Exactly. Plenty of medicine to take there, but the Jets 100%. I mean, look, I bet them to win over 4.5 games. I thought they were going to be like a 5-6, maybe even 7-win team. I thought they were going to be better than the Dolphins. Like, I thought they were at least going to be respectable. And then week 1, they almost, and they should have beat the Steelers.
Pittsburgh.
Right. And I said to myself, all right, this is going to be a scrappy little football team. And now they're just, they're just getting obliterated and embarrassed.
So is there any chance that Aaron Glenn is one and done? That's my question for you. 0-7. Okay. The defense, which is supposed to be Glenn's like forte, is horrible defense. The offense is terrible. There's no quarterback in place. They look completely just a complete mess on both sides of the ball. Is there any chance this guy is a one and done situation for Aaron Glenn?
I think it definitely could be. And I'll tell you what I think influences that heavily is, some of the quarterbacks that are, sorry, not quarterbacks, some of the coaches that are available heading into next year, right? Like we had talked last week, if like a Harbaugh or a Stefanski or, some of these other guys that, we know are pretty good coaches, but they're just kind of getting the short end of the stick right now. Almost similar to what the Patriots did when they cut cord with Mayo because Vrabel was still out there. It's like, depending on what their options are, I could definitely see him being one and done. But they just look super dysfunctional right now. And like you said, I haven't seen anything or any reason to want to keep Aaron Glenn around. He's not making that defense play to his potential. He doesn't look like he's getting the best out of his players or that the team is bought in. So it's like, what do you hang your hat on if you're the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, not much. And if you get a top 3 pick in the draft, and you're going to go draft a franchise quarterback. Is Aaron Glenn the guy to develop him? No, I said last week, and I stand by this, the Jets will find a way to screw this up. They will win enough games to take themselves out of position where they can draft a franchise quarterback. Tyrod Taylor will come in, they will win games, and it will screw them in the long term.
That's what the Jets do. Tyrod Taylor is now the official starter for the Jets, I think, as of today.
I'm not surprised at all. Yeah. And this is so predictable. This is what the Jets are. The Jets are smart. They should start Justin Fields. They should find some guy from Yonkers, New York, in the stands, put him out there and let him go 0-17 and freaking finally, for the first time in 60 years, since Joe friggin' Namath or maybe Ken O'Brien 40 years ago, draft a franchise quarterback. That's not what the Jets are going to do. No. They're going to put Tyrod Taylor out there, win 5 games, and blow it. Wait and see.
No, 100%.
All right. Finger pointing abound in Miami. I'm watching this game. I don't know if you saw McDaniel's press conference after the game saying he can't fix what's going on in Miami. That to me was the icing on the cake. I watched this game Sunday, and I'm like, if they get their ass kicked by the lowly Cleveland Browns, this is it for Mike McDaniels. He's not going to have a job on Tuesday. Then he comes out in the press conference post game and he says he can't fix it. That's the first time I've ever heard a coach say that, ever, right? How does this guy have a job at this point? Are they tanking?
It really makes you wonder, right? I can't believe he was even around to coach this week in especially after this performance. I mean, you would think that they would get rid of him, ASAP at this point. It has just become such a disaster in Miami. We talked at the beginning of the year about candidates for some of the worst teams in the league. And I think I can definitively say right now, I think this Miami Dolphins team is the worst team in the league. And I know they have a better record than the Jets, but I would actually take Tyrod Taylor and the Jets over this Dolphins team right now.
Oh yeah. 100%. The Jets are way more talented than what Miami is.
So right now. I think they are legitimately the worst team in the league. Mike McDaniel, I think he's just totally on borrowed time at this point. Like, I think it's a foregone conclusion that they don't bring him back. The only question is, how long do they delay the inevitable at this point?
I honestly think that keeping Mike McDaniels around is a form of tanking. That's really what I think. And I think that why bring in another coach to fix this and go in 3 or 4 games and knock yourself out of a top 2 or 3 pick? Just let McDaniels finish it out. It's a disaster. This is falling apart. It's not falling apart. It's fallen apart.
Right.
There's, he can't fix it. The coach and the quarterback are pointing fingers at each other. The quarterback's pointing fingers at the locker room. Yeah. The best player is out for the year. Yeah. It's a disaster. Let it be a disaster. It's probably the smart thing to do long term. Go win 1 game. Get a top pick in the draft. It's going to be another good year for quarterbacks this year. Take your chance on the guy you like best and get your franchise set up for the future.
And that's exactly it. Clean house. I mean, look, it's Miami, right? Miami is a favorable landing spot. It's a favorable destination if you're talking about a place to go set up, from a coaching and a personnel standpoint, or the players. I mean, go out, draft a clean house, bring in a franchise quarterback, bring in a new head coach. You're just geographically, you're going to be at a place that people will want to come play. Like, just totally
100%,
like totally just rebuild and start from scratch with a new head coach and a new quarterback. But all hope has been lost at this point. I think the culture has gotten so bad. The talent is just not there. I mean, they need a total reset.
Total reset. And you could see the glow on Rex Ryan's face on ESPN NFL Countdown. He's been linked to that job. Yeah. And he was actually hysterical on Sunday morning talking about the Miami Dolphins, or Monday morning talking about the Miami Dolphins, and how important, he even said that exact phrase, culture change, and how important it would be for Miami. But if I'm Miami, I'm not bringing in Rex Ryan anytime until January, because you bring in Rex Ryan, guess what? You're going to win 3 or 4 games. And that's going to screw you long term. Yeah. All right. A couple more quick ones. I just got to point this out. Favorite podcast, beating target, Trevor Lawrence. Do you know that with Sunday's loss, that Trevor Lawrence now has a 26-40 career record as a starter? That's even worse than I thought it was. I believe he's still completing less than 60% of his passes. I know we dump on this guy all the time, but it just doesn't cease to amaze me. When does it end, Justin, for Trevor Lawrence? When do people finally catch up to the fact that this guy is not that good?
I don't know, but the thing that's just shocking me at this point is like, you know, we were onto this so early, like years ago, right? I just, for the life of me, are people watching a different game than we are? Like, how is there anybody who is still holding on to hope that Trevor Lawrence is a good franchise quarterback, a guy worth building around, a talented guy? Like the way they still talk about this guy, it's like like it's almost like he's just in a little rut, like he's in like a 5-year rut. I mean, the guy is just so bad. And I actually kind of like what Liam Cohen's doing down there. I think
Yeah.
he's better than I think we gave him credit for. I think that's somebody that I think we got to take a little bit of medicine on. I think you actually did a couple episodes ago.
I did
But
a few weeks ago,
yeah,
100%.
Liam Cohen looks like he's doing a decent job. That Jaguars defense, it's not good, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like they have they have some things to build around. But Trevor Lawrence, you talk about capping your ceiling and your upside. I mean, that guy is just going to destine you to be a mediocre at best. And that's an absolute best franchise for the entirety of his career.
10,000%, Justin. It is just one of the most amazing things. His career winning percentage is 39% right now. Mac Jones is 44%.
Yeah.
Mac Jones has a way better career winning percentage than Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
So, it's just at some point, it has to end. You can't have a quarterback play this bad and keep rolling him out there and pretending he's a franchise quarterback.
And look,
he's not.
No, he's not. And here's the problem with this is, over the last couple years, we've seen this trend in the NFL where, it's almost just been like record-breaking contract after record-breaking contract. Like these quarterback contracts keep resetting the market and breaking records. And the downside of that is, we saw it happen with Russell Wilson in what's his name, Deshaun Watson a few years ago. It's like when you give a quarterback that type of money, you are so all in on that. Like it's a total make or break for the entire franchise. Right. And so Trevor Lawrence essentially has the Jaguars in a stranglehold. He's crippled them with that contract. And by the same token, you're not going to be able to get something out of him. It's like to hit the reset button, you're going to have to take such a cap hit. It's like there's no good scenario for the Jacksonville Jaguars at this point.
None whatsoever. They're a franchise in trouble. And Liam Cohen, there's a lot of talent on the team. Liam Cohen is doing a great job.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you two more quick ones. Let's try to keep it 60 seconds each before we wrap it up. Number one, the Dallas Cowboys will make the playoffs this year. Sneaky 3-3, 3-1.
Yeah. Very, very, very sneaky 3-1. I mean, look, it's not totally out of the question. That offense is good enough that I think they can potentially be in any game on any given day. It really, I think just comes down to the rest of the league at this point. I think the NFC is a little bit weaker than maybe people thought, but I wouldn't be shocked to see the Cowboys hover around 500 and sneak their way out with the 7th.
You know what's going to kill the Cowboys in this year is their schedule. They got a tough schedule.
Yes.
Like they got in their main, they got the Broncos, Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Chargers, Commanders, and Giants. So the only real softballs they have on that schedule, they have the Cardinals and they have the Raiders. But like they got a tough schedule, so I think that's going to hurt them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then last one, more likely to save their season, the Bengals or the Ravens?
I'm gonna say the Bengals, and the reason why I say the Bengals is I think Joe Flacco has given me a little bit of hope for this team. The reason I'm going to say the and I know Lamar Jackson will probably come back healthy at some point, probably some point soon. But the reason I'm going to say the Bengals is because the reason why the Bengals have had a problem is because of talent, right? They lost their franchise quarterback. I feel like the reason the Ravens have had a problem is because there's a culture issue. There's something internally with that team that's not clicking. Like you can't say it's totally because of Lamar Jackson's injury. I mean, look at what happened to them even dating back to opening night in Buffalo, right? There's something wrong inherently with the culture of this team and their ability to go out and win games and compete. And so even though I think they're a more talented team, especially when Lamar Jackson's healthy, I think the Bengals got a better chance. And the Bengals, I don't know if you looked at the Bengals schedule. Bengals have a pretty cushy schedule coming
Yeah,
up.
yeah. The Bengals have an easy schedule. I mean, I hate to take a cop out, but I think that I would say both. Like, I mean, like, like I don't think either of these teams' seasons are over
No.
yet. I think the Bengals have the easy schedule. I think that they have Joe Flacco, who's brought stability to their quarterback position, and Burrow will be back in December. So I don't think they're totally toast yet. And I'm sorry, I still believe in Lamar Jackson and Harbaugh. I really do. So, and they have their schedule is reasonably easy too. So I'm not saying I really think both of them still have a chance to make the playoffs in the AFC. All right, let's wrap it up with this, Justin. We haven't done this in a few weeks. The non-football topic of the week, always the best part of the show, Justin. And this is what I want to talk about today. One cause that the rest of the world is behind that you just cannot get behind.
Oh, this is a good one. One cause that the rest of the world is behind.
Because I got one.
All right, you kick it off. Kick it off for me.
All right, I'm going to kick it off.
Okay.
The bees. All right, the save the bees thing. Okay, I'm not on board with that. Like, look, I know that bees are good for the earth and good for the environment, but I'm sorry. If a bee comes near me or comes near my children, I am taking off my shoe and I'm smashing it, and I'm not feeling bad about it. And I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, I don't want my children being stung with a bee. I don't want to be stung by a bee. So sorry, bees. Know you're super important. Love you. Mean it. But if you come near me, if you come near my kids, that's it.
Yeah. No, I love that one. I think it's a good one. I get it. The whole whatever ecosystem, whatever it is. I get it. They have an ecological, impact, but who's ever seen a bee and not been, a little uneasy about it, right? Like it's just they just freak you.
Are you allergic to bees? You're allergic.
No,
to bees,
I'm not. That's like the one thing I'm not allergic to. I'm not allergic.
It's like the one thing you aren't allergic to.
Yeah, which is but look, even if you're not allergic to bees, who sees a bee flying around them and is like, oh, look at a bee, right? It freaks you out all the time. So the
reason this came to mind is because we went apple picking on Saturday, right? And we went to some place in Northborough. I'm not going to say the name, except it was named Tuga's Family Farm. So I just said the name. And it was literally, dude, I have never seen so many bees in my life. I've been apple picking before. I don't know what they do. Maybe they spray. I don't know. This place was like a bee frigging Times Square of bees. Yeah. You couldn't walk without being swarmed by bees. And of course, my poor wife got stung by a bee, and we had to leave because I'm like, we can't stay out here because all these kids are going to get stung by bees. So we had to bail out of there. But it just made me realize, like, look, I want to be in with the bees, but I just can't be in with the bees. They're too dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a good one. And I would agree with you. I'm going to look, I know this one is, probably a little bit of a cop out. It's kind of the low hanging fruit. But it's just one that I think recently comes to mind because I experienced it. I took I was out to dinner with my wife about a week ago. And our drinks came to the table with paper straws. And by the by the time I was halfway done with the drink, the straw had already wilted and faded. I could barely, consume liquid through it. It was like it was like falling apart, just disgusting. And you know what? Look, I get it. You want to use less plastic. It might be more eco-friendly, but at what point do you just totally sacrifice utility? Like, I'm sorry, at the rate we use plastics and other things, just give me a straw that works. It doesn't even have to be plastic. Just give me a straw that's not going to fall apart in my drink.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great one. And I couldn't agree more with that. look, we all care about the environment. We want to minimize plastic. The paper straw is no substitute for a plastic straw.
No.
There has to be a better way. We have sent men to the moon. We have invented all kinds of crazy things. Someone somewhere must have a better invention than the paper straw. There has to be a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? And now that you got my brain turning, can I just throw out an honorable mention?
Yes, please, by all means.
Look, I know I'm in the minority about this, but I know the whole, door dashing, Uber Eats thing has made it like super convenient for people, to get delivery from places that, didn't used to do delivery. But I'm sorry, the amount of people that I see door dashing like an iced coffee or like
Yeah.
like a singular item. And look, I get it. Hey, if that's what you want, do it. But you know, at a certain point, I think it's crazy to be paying $15 for an iced coffee. Like you pay
Oh, yeah.
4 times,
Oh,
5
yeah.
times the price of the drink just to have somebody deliver it to you. And so that's the thing. It has nothing to do with the convenience. It's just the principle for me is like, I'm not going to pay $15 for you to bring a singular item to my residence. You want to bring a meal or a haul of groceries?
I would say door dashing is like boating. It's like a
Right.
rich man's luxury.
Right.
Right. Like you can't be spending like a $15, $20 in fees and gratuity to get like a $9 sandwich delivered to you if you're living on a budget. You just can't.
No, dude. I was with a guy, a buddy of mine, a few weeks ago, and he door dashed a single McFlurry. A single medium McFlurry, and he paid like $14 to do it. And it's like $1.99. You know what I mean? So it's like just the principle of that to me is just confounding. So yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I'm a rich man, but I'm not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. So I happen to love DoorDash. But the thought crossed my mind today when I DoorDashed my lunch again, and I looked at how much that I paid for my salad, and I'm like, no one on like a budget can do this, right?
No, but that's also a meal, right? I think there's a difference between a meal versus just like a singular item. Like, look, you would get like lunch from a delivery place, you know what I mean? And you'd get lunch, but yeah, but if you're just getting like a drink or like a bag of chips, which I see people do, that's when it starts to get crazy.
It's wasteful.
Yes.
It's wasteful.
Yeah.
Like a single coffee, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, those were all great ones, man. All right, anything else you want to add before we wrap up this episode of the Dr. Football Ultimate Patriots podcast?
No, that's about it.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, hope everybody enjoyed it. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Check us out. And we look forward to coming back next week with another episode. Enjoy it. This week, Patriots, Browns. Should we just mention that quickly?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Patriots, Browns. Look, I mean, here's the thing. I know the Browns defense is good. Maybe the offense struggles a little bit. I just can't see the Browns being able to score with the Patriots. Patriots got a good defense. Browns offense is struggling.
Yep.
I think it could be one of those like low scoring affairs, but I still think the Patriots should win this handedly.
I hear a lot of people trying to sell this as a competitive game. This is not a competitive game.
Yeah.
The Patriots are going to steamroll the Browns. The Browns have a good defense. It doesn't matter. Dylan Gabriel versus Drake May is no comparison. I think the Patriots win this game easily. I'm going to call it like a 27-10 Pats win.
I was going to say 23-10.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the football this week. Be healthy, be well, be safe. And we will catch you next time on the Ultimate Patriots Dr. Football Podcast. Take care.